TikTok in the pop machine. Now you might be thinking, cool, you're thinking about TikTok, the app. I'm not. Okay, I'm not. So in 2009, Kesha exploded onto the scene with a song that is most famous of hers called TikTok, a song that became a cultural phenomenon. But here's the twist, guys. She didn't make a dime from her biggest early hit. She wasn't credited as a featured artist on the track she sang on before her debut. She didn't get royalties for certain early work, or for some of her certain early work. She was still broke even when she became famous. Let's be honest, too, her persona was engineered. The messy hair, the glitter, the I don't care attitude, the hard party aesthetic. It was a character designed to sell records. She was writing her own songs, but people forget this. Kesha wasn't a puppet. She was a songwriter with a very distinct, beautiful voice. The industry wanted her to stay inside of a box, okay? Once the party girl image worked, the machine wanted more of it. More glitter, more chaos, more wildness. People love seeing the wild child. But let me ask you guys a question out there. How long do you think someone with that type of persona that isn't really their personality is going to last? It doesn't last long. But behind the scenes, she was struggling with the disconnect between the persona and who she actually was as a person. So let's move on to her downfall, okay? So the fall, industry pressure, and personal breaking points. This is the part of Kesha's story that gets really complicated. And we're going to handle it respectfully, guys, because without making any legal claims, because this was a mess. It was a mess. Or we're not even going to speculate unresolved matters. But here's what we can talk about of the fall of her career, okay? The pressure she was under was relentless. She was touring nonstop. So she was recording nonstop. She was expected to maintain a persona that just wasn't sustainable. Can you imagine waking up 24/7, 365, and your job is to party? Dude, I can't. At some point, that just becomes a physically just dogging side of you. It's terrible, okay? The second point, the public perception turned on her, and it wasn't fair. This goes back to an earlier episode where I quoted that we have a certain expectation of an artist, and when they can't live up to that potential, that's when we start turning on them a little bit. Because we're used to one sound, and we're not getting it. This is so unfair to her, though. The public perception turned on her. Okay? People dismissed her as a joke. Critics wrote her off. The persona overshadowed the talent, which she had an immense amount of. She struggled with mental and physical health, something I didn't even know about her. She entered treatment for an eating disorder. She spoke openly about pressure to look a certain way. She talked about losing control of her own image, okay? And the fourth point, she became the center of a long, highly publicized legal battle. We won't get into details about that at all. It's not our lane. But what matters for this episode is it put her career on pause. It put her life under a microscope that was completely unfair, and it forced her to rebuild from the ground up. Now, as we notice resilient artists, yes, they might change their sound, but they come back. That's the point, right? So, what's the next segment? Exactly. The reinvention, Rainbow, and the return of the artist. As many people know, in 2016, Kesha released the Rainbow. Everything changed. This wasn't a comeback, it was a rebirth. Okay? The sound was different. It was less electro pop, more rock, more soul, more raw vocals, more live instrumentation. The themes were deeper. Healing, resilience, identity, freedom, and most all of what she needed was self-worth. Critics finally, at this point, took her seriously. And it's amazing to see because this album earned Grammy nominations. Reviewers praised her songwriting. People realized she wasn't just a gimmick. She was an artist. She reclaimed her narrative. Rainbow wasn't just an album, was a statement. And here's what it said: I'm more than what the industry made me. And that message resonated with millions of people. And I think a lot of people nowadays can also, even to this day in 2026, instead of 2017, almost a decade later, people, I think, still can relate to that statement. You're not what others people make you. And I wish people would realize that